The planet Tereth 9 loomed larger with every passing minute. Its dusty plains and jagged ridges stretched beneath the fleets like a challenge to all who approached. Inside the human starship Valor's Dawn, Captain Mira paced the bridge with steady steps. Her crew moved efficiently, checking systems, calibrating weapons, and reviewing the tactical displays. Outside, the Apex fleet mirrored their formations with precision and calm, each ship reflecting disciplined design. Yet there was something different about the Apex today. Their officers, usually silent and stern, seemed slightly distracted. Commander Rin had insisted on repeating the ritual he had observed, the human brew of courage, before the battle officially began. The idea of a ritual before battle was not strange to the Apex, but imitating a human act was new. Their curiosity and respect for the human custom had awakened a sense of shared purpose among the soldiers. On Valor's Dawn, Mira noticed the Apex behavior through the communication channel. "They're copying us," she said quietly to Lieutenant Dara. "Look at them. They're holding their cups and repeating something in unison." Dara leaned closer to the monitor, eyebrows raised. "They are serious about it too. You can see the way they straighten their backs and tighten their grips. This is more than curiosity. It's dedication." Mira smiled. "Well, if it gives them confidence, let them think it's a sacred ritual. Coffee is just coffee, but apparently it inspires courage for some." Below decks, in the human common area, Mira brewed fresh coffee while her crew prepared for the final departure into orbit. The rich, earthy aroma filled the room, wrapping everyone in a small, comforting bubble amid the tense hours before battle. Even engineers and medics, who would never be directly involved in combat, paused to take a cup. Lieutenant Nora carried hers to the observation deck and looked at the Apex ships. "Captain, I don't know what we did to impress them," she said with a laugh. "Maybe it's the smell, or maybe caffeine really does work miracles." Mira chuckled softly. "Miracles are rarely in the brew itself. It's in how you use the energy it gives. Focus, clarity, a moment to steady your mind, that's what counts." Meanwhile, on the Iron Creed, Rin instructed the Apex squad to follow through with the ritual. Each officer was given a metal cup of human-brewed coffee. The bitter liquid was unfamiliar, but they held it carefully, straightened their spines, and spoke the phrase Rin had taught them. "Stay awake." The Apex took their first sip. Their faces stiffened as the sharp heat and bitter taste spread across their palates. Some blinked rapidly, adjusting to the sensation, while others simply held their cups firmly. Rin observed silently, noting the determination in every movement. "To accept discomfort willingly is to embrace courage," he said softly to Cal, who stood nearby. "This is what the humans teach without even knowing it." Cal nodded, his golden eyes fixed on the Apex soldiers. "Commander, their dedication is remarkable. They approach an unfamiliar task with intent and strength. I can see how it could prepare them for battle." Rin smiled slightly, almost imperceptibly. "It is not the taste that matters. It is the commitment, the act of unity, and the focus it brings. The humans have discovered a simple but powerful way to prepare themselves." Back on the human ship, Mira finished her last preparations. She checked the energy grids, confirmed shield alignment, and ensured every crew member was at their station. She then returned to her mug, inhaling the warm scent of the coffee before taking a sip. The warmth spread through her, steadying her mind and calming her nerves. She turned to her crew. "All right," she said, "this is it. Remember, coffee in hand or not, courage comes from within. Stay focused, trust each other, and we'll navigate through this together." In response, the crew lifted their mugs one final time. "To staying awake," they said in unison. The phrase was simple, yet filled with determination. It was not a command, not a ritual, and not a spell. It was a reminder to remain alert, aware, and ready. Commander Rin observed this moment closely. The Apex squad repeated the phrase with precision. Each sip of coffee, each careful breath, and each gesture of unity was recorded in their memory banks. Rin could feel the energy of the ritual spreading through his fleet. Something about this act, something so human, had touched the apex in a way that traditional ceremonies never had. Kal whispered, "Commander." The soldiers seem more focused. They are alert and steady. Perhaps the human's ritual is more effective than we realized. Rin nodded. Yes. Observe carefully. Courage is not only in preparation, but in belief. They believe in their act, and so it strengthens them. The fleets aligned for descent. Valor's Dawn and the Apex ships moved in synchronized patterns. The swarm had not yet revealed themselves, but the tension was palpable. Every officer, human and Apex alike, felt the weight of the moment. On the human side, Mira observed the sensors. "We're approaching orbital entry," she said. "I want shields at full, navigation precise, and readiness at maximum." Lieutenant Dara checked the controls. "Captain, all systems are stable. Crew morale is high. The Apex seem unusually coordinated." Mira smiled. "Good. Let's make sure we stay that way." She glanced at the Apex through the comm feed. The image of their ships, disciplined and methodical, reassured her. The unusual mimicry of the coffee ritual had created a shared sense of focus between the two species. On the Apex side, Rin surveyed the human ship carefully. "The ritual works," he said softly. "They are steady, prepared, and aware. Our observation has brought us closer to understanding the human spirit." Kal asked, "Commander, shall we suggest they share the ritual with the entire fleet?" Rin paused. "Not yet. Let us see the result in action. The truth of their courage will reveal itself in the coming battle. If it succeeds, then all may learn from it." The moments before descent were quiet but charged. Both fleets, each in their own way, felt the anticipation of combat. The humans relied on preparation, comfort, and shared focus. The Apex relied on discipline, observation, and respect for the human ritual they had chosen to imitate. The two approaches were different, but they converged in purpose: courage, readiness, and the hope of victory. Mira checked her systems one last time. "Navigation, confirm orbital descent vectors." "All set, Captain," replied Lieutenant Nora. "Entry point is clear. No anomalies detected." "Good," Mira said. She sipped her coffee once more, letting the warmth spread through her. "Remember, it's not just about staying awake, it's about staying aware, staying calm, and trusting your team." The human crew nodded. Each officer returned to their station, fingers steady on controls, eyes focused on the displays. The Apex watched carefully, copying gestures and movements, imagining that they too were drawing courage from the bitter liquid. Commander Rin felt a small smile touch his scales. "This is fascinating," he whispered. "The humans' courage is not in their weapons. It is in their habits, their small rituals, their focus. Even something as simple as a drink can prepare the mind for what is ahead." Kal tilted his head. "Commander, it seems to have worked. The fleet is steady. No hesitation, no distraction. This preparation has united us in purpose." Rin nodded. "Yes, courage can take many forms. Today we learned that even small comforts may carry great power." As the fleets descended toward the planet's orbit, both species felt the energy of shared focus. Humans relied on their instincts and small rituals. Apex relied on observation, discipline, and imitation. Both found strength in the other. The simple act of drinking coffee, something so ordinary to humans, had become a bridge between two species, connecting their determination and courage. Mira glanced at the viewport as the planet grew larger. Dust swirled across the surface, and distant craters reflected the sunlight. "Here we go," she said softly. "Time to show what staying awake really means." On the Apex side, Rin observed the same planet, his golden eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Yes," he said. "Let this ritual of courage carry us through the coming trial. Let the humans teach us what it means to face the unknown with focus and unity." The fleets were ready. The first test of their cooperation and courage was about to begin. Every officer, human and Apex alike, held a silent determination. The Gao, strange ritual of brewing coffee had brought an unexpected clarity. a shared focus that no formal training could have created. As the ships moved in formation above Tereth 9, Commander Rin allowed himself a thought. Perhaps there was more to humanity than physical skill and unpredictability. Perhaps their greatest strength lay in the way they found courage in small things, in ordinary acts made extraordinary by intention and belief. The human crew, sipping coffee and standing ready at their stations, felt calm but alert. Their minds were clear, their teamwork strong, and their determination unwavering. Little did they know, their simple habit had inspired their apex allies in ways far beyond what they imagined. With the planet below and the swarm awaiting, both fleets were prepared for what was coming. Courage, focus, and unity, fueled in part by a bitter human drink, were ready to guide them. The preparation was complete. The stage was set. Commander Rin observed one last time. "We are ready," he said softly. "May courage guide us." Captain Mira, finishing her final sip of coffee, nodded to her crew. "Stay awake, stay aware, and trust each other. Let's move." And with that, the fleets began their synchronized descent, each officer carrying with them the quiet power of preparation. The twin suns of Tereth 9 reflected off the hulls of the human and apex fleets as they floated quietly in orbit above the dusty planet. The swarm had retreated, leaving both species with a hard-earned sense of relief and accomplishment. The battle had been intense, but careful preparation, coordination, and trust had led to victory. Both humans and apex had learned lessons that could not be written in manuals. The simplest acts, such as drinking coffee, had proven more powerful than anyone had imagined. Captain Mira stood in the observation deck of the Valor's Dawn, looking at the apex ships alongside her. Their formations were tight, precise, and unwavering. She smiled quietly. Their imitation of the human coffee ritual had created an unexpected bond. It had brought unity, focus, and courage, and it had helped both fleets overcome the overwhelming force of the swarm. Lieutenant Nora leaned beside her. "Captain, I think the Apex really believe coffee is a sacred ritual," she said softly. "They kept saying stay awake like it was a command of honor, not just a morning habit." Mira laughed softly. "Let them think that. If it inspires courage and keeps them focused, it's fine. Coffee is simple, but the meaning they assign to it is extraordinary." Meanwhile, on the Iron Creed, Commander Rin gathered his officers in the main observation chamber. He allowed himself a moment to reflect on the battle. The Apex had performed flawlessly, inspired not by weapons or training alone, but by belief in a ritual they had only just learned. Rin realized that courage could come from the smallest gestures. Humans had shown him this, and he intended to honor it. "The humans have demonstrated that courage is not only in strength or preparation," Rin said to Kal. "It is also in belief, in shared acts, and in unity. Their simple ritual has guided us and inspired our warriors. This is a lesson we will not forget." Kal inclined his head. "Commander, should we formally recognize the ritual within our records?" Rin nodded. "Yes, it is worthy of preservation. Not for the coffee itself, but for what it represents. Courage shared, courage gained." Back on Valor's Dawn, Mira called her crew together in the common area. There was a lightness in the atmosphere that had been missing during the tense hours of battle. The smell of coffee lingered in the air, though the mugs were empty now. The humans, tired but proud, gathered around to share a moment of calm. "Crew," Mira said, smiling warmly, "we did what we came here to do. The swarm is pushed back, and we stood together with our allies. That includes the Apex, who now respect our little ritual. Remember, it was not just the coffee, but our focus, preparation, and trust in each other that brought success today." Lieutenant Dara raised her mug, now filled with fresh coffee. "To staying awake," she said, echoing the phrase from earlier. The crew joined in with quiet smiles, some laughing softly. It was a shared moment of camaraderie, a simple act made powerful by context and intention. High above, Commander Rin watched the humans through the communication feed. He was fascinated by how ordinary acts could have extraordinary effects. He had already instructed his officers to replicate the ritual regularly, not for the beverage itself, but for the courage and focus it inspired. "Prepare for a ceremony," Rin told Kal. "The humans will be honored, and the ritual of courage will be recorded for all generations of the Apex. We will give it meaning, and it will serve as a symbol of unity between our peoples." Kal's golden eyes widened slightly. A ceremony, Commander? That is highly unusual. Unusual or not, Rin replied. It is appropriate. We owe the humans respect. They have taught us a lesson in courage and focus. It deserves recognition. The ceremony was held aboard the Iron Creed in a grand observation chamber overlooking the planet. Apex warriors stood in formation, their golden eyes bright with respect and anticipation. At the center of the room, Rin placed a specially designed golden kettle. The craftsmanship was precise, angular, and beautiful, reflecting both Apex design and human practicality. Engraved on its side were the words "Courage shared, victory gained." Mira and her senior officers were invited to participate. They stepped forward with their mugs, smiling as Rin addressed the assembly. Today, Rin said, his deep voice resonating throughout the chamber, we honor an extraordinary act of courage. The humans have shared their tradition with us not through words or weapons, but through a simple ritual. They brew courage and through it inspire others. We recognize this gift, and we declare it a symbol of unity and bravery. The Apex warriors bowed slightly in respect. Some mimicked the human act, lifting their cups and repeating the phrase, "Stay awake," their voices echoing through the chamber. Even though they did not fully understand the beverage, they had internalized its meaning. The ritual had become a bridge between species, a reminder that courage could take many forms. Mira raised her mug with a smile. "To staying awake," she said. The words, simple as they were, carried new weight in the chamber. The Apex repeated the phrase with solemnity, each voice adding to the shared energy of focus and bravery. Kal observed the moment closely. "Commander," he whispered, "their courage is contagious. Even the most disciplined warriors are inspired by a shared belief." Rin nodded. "Yes, courage is not only in battle, but in trust, unity, and the willingness to share strength. The humans have taught us that today." After the ceremony, both fleets celebrated quietly. The swarm threat had been pushed back, and the humans and Apex had forged a bond that could not be broken easily. For the humans, the ceremony was simple, meaningful, and heartfelt. For the Apex, it was an extraordinary acknowledgement of bravery, discipline, and respect. Captain Mira walked among her crew, smiling at their faces. "We should remember this," she said softly. "It is proof that even small acts can have great impact. Coffee, courage, focus, and trust, these are powerful tools when used together." Lieutenant Nora nodded. "Who would have thought that something so simple could create unity across species?" "Exactly," Mira replied. "Sometimes courage is brewed, shared, and celebrated. Today was a perfect example." Commander Rin, back in his private chamber, reflected quietly. "Human courage is remarkable," he said. "It is not bound by tradition or discipline alone. It is found in intention, shared acts, and belief. This is a lesson for all Apex warriors. We will remember it always." Kal joined him and said, "Commander, shall we continue this ritual in future campaigns?" Rin smiled slightly. "Yes, not for the drink itself, but for the focus it inspires. Courage is strengthened when shared. This ritual, ordinary to humans, is extraordinary in effect. It will guide us in all future battles." In the days following the victory, the Apex incorporated the human ritual into their own preparations, always acknowledging its origin. The fleets trained together, shared meals, and of course coffee. The simple act had become a symbol of partnership, respect, and courage, reminding both species that bravery came in many forms. Humans and Apex exchanged stories of the battle, strategies, and lessons learned. The coffee ritual, initially a moment of curiosity, had become a legend among both species. Young Apex warriors asked questions about it, and human crew members smiled, happy to share their simple habit. Captain Mira looked out of the observation deck toward the planet below. The skies were quiet, the dust settling after the storm. She reflected on the battle, the unity, and the courage that had been shared. "Sometimes," she whispered, "the smallest things make the biggest difference." Commander Rin, standing on the Iron Creed beside his officers, echoed the thought silently. Courage could come in many forms. A shared ritual, a simple act of faith, and a little warmth could inspire an entire fleet. The Apex had learned that lesson, and the humans had unknowingly become teachers of spirit and bravery. The golden kettle, engraved with courage shared, victory gained, remained in the center of the observation chamber. It was more than metal and craftsmanship. It was a symbol of the day when two species united, learned from each other, and discovered that courage could be brewed and shared. Mira raised her empty mug one final time and whispered, "To staying awake." Rin, watching her and the Apex fleet through the communications feed, repeated the words silently in his mind. Stay awake. In that moment, across space and species, courage was no longer just a human trait or an Apex trait. It belonged to all who had believed in preparation, focus, and shared strength. A simple drink had become a legend, a symbol of unity, and a reminder that even in the vastness of space, small acts could carry extraordinary power. The human and Apex fleets continued their journey, stronger, wiser, and united. The swarm threat remained, but their victory had proven that courage, shared and respected, could overcome even the greatest challenge. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the ships, the smell of coffee lingered, a small ordinary thing that had changed the course of history. Captain Mira smiled and sipped a final cup. Commander Rin stood in his observation chamber, golden eyes reflecting light. Both understood in different ways that courage had been brewed, shared, and celebrated. The story of that day would travel across fleets, across planets, and across generations, a testament to the power of belief, unity, and a simple human ritual. And so, the humans and Apex learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Courage could come in many forms, but when it was shared, it became unstoppable. The planet Terath 9 grew larger in the viewports of both fleets. Dust storms swirled over its jagged terrain, and the light of the twin suns reflected off the metal hulls of the human and Apex ships. The swarm had been detected moving from the shadows, their mechanical shapes glinting faintly in orbit. There was no warning, no sound, only the silent approach of countless enemy machines. Captain Mira took a steadying breath. "All stations report," she said calmly, her eyes scanning the control panels. "Shields at maximum," replied Lieutenant Nora. "Weapons charged and systems stable." Mira nodded. "Good. Remember your training and our focus. Stay awake, stay aware, and stay together." On the Iron Creed, Commander Rin observed the humans carefully. He could see the concentration in their faces, the precision in their movements, and the confidence in their gestures. He reminded his Apex warriors of the ritual, the drinking of the dark brew, and they repeated it silently to themselves. Every sip had prepared them in more ways than one. In their minds, it was a sacred ceremony, a shared act of courage that connected them with their human allies. "Warriors," Rin said, his deep voice calm and commanding, "the humans brew courage before battle. Let their focus guide you. Let your discipline meet their spirit." Kal nodded. "Yes, Commander." "All squads are prepared." The swarm appeared in the distance, an endless swarm of metallic forms moving with precision and intent. They were cold and mechanical, devoid of emotion or hesitation. To the human and Apex fleets, their presence was both threatening and hypnotic. The battle was inevitable. Mira adjusted her seat, her fingers steady on the controls. "All wings maintain formation. Focus on defense first. Target their scouts and keep our shields intact." The Apex responded with similar precision. Though they had never faced the swarm alongside humans, their faith in the ritual and in Commander Rin's leadership gave them confidence. The memory of the coffee, the warmth, and the shared phrase, "stay awake," filled their minds with an unusual energy. They felt courage, even though the taste of the brew had long since faded. "Commander," Kal said quietly, "the warriors are moving faster than usual. Their coordination is exceptional." Rin allowed himself a small smile. "The ritual works," he said. "Even the smallest of acts can awaken the mind. Watch closely, Kal. This is the power of human spirit." The first wave of swarm drones moved closer. They were fast, their metallic forms reflecting the light of the suns. The humans and Apex met them with coordinated fire. Lasers and projectiles streaked across space, and energy shields shimmered as they absorbed the impact. Lieutenant Nora reported, "Captain, the swarm is splitting into multiple groups. We need to adjust formation." "Understood," Mira said. "Keep calm, stay alert, and trust your instincts. Focus on your training and remember why we are here." Rin observed the humans' leadership with admiration. Their calm focus under pressure was unlike anything the Apex usually saw. He called out to his fleet, "Warriors, follow the humans' lead. Let their courage guide your actions. Trust the ritual and trust yourselves." The Apex ships surged forward, their movements sharp and synchronized. They mirrored the humans' maneuvers perfectly, even though the tactic was unfamiliar to them. Their trust in the ritual and in Commander Rin's interpretation of it gave them confidence. Mira watched the Apex closely through the communications feed. She noticed how they moved with more energy, striking faster and holding formation with unusual precision. She realized that their imitation of the coffee ritual had done more than she expected. Even without understanding the beverage itself, the act of belief had strengthened their focus and morale. "Impressive," she said quietly. "They're more effective than I imagined." The swarm pressed forward, their numbers overwhelming. Drones swooped from all directions, their metallic limbs clashing against shields. The human and Apex fleets fired in coordinated bursts, each ship covering the other. The synergy between the two species was unexpected, but it was working. On the Iron Creed, Rin's voice carried calm authority. "Warriors, maintain focus. Remember the ritual of courage. Let the strength of the humans flow through you. Do not falter." The Apex obeyed, their movements precise and unwavering. Even as drones approached, they held formation, their eyes fixed on the distant human ships as if drawing energy from them. The simple act of drinking coffee had become a symbol of strength and unity, something that no traditional Apex ritual had ever accomplished so effectively. In the midst of battle, a group of swarm drones broke through the human lines. Mira acted quickly. "Nora, intercept! Dara, cover the flank!" Lieutenant Dara adjusted the weapons controls with calm efficiency, firing precise bursts at the drones. Lieutenant Nora maneuvered her ship, intercepting the intruders and redirecting them away from the fleet. The Apex followed suit, their ships forming a protective barrier around the humans. Every movement was swift, calculated, and confident. Rin observed with satisfaction. "Siko, the ritual strengthens not only the mind but the body. Courage is belief in action, and our warriors are living proof." Even as the swarm pressed harder, the humans and Apex held steady. Mira's crew worked in perfect coordination, communicating efficiently, sharing updates, and adjusting strategies on the fly. The Apex, inspired by the ritual, moved as one entity, their trust in the humans' preparation and in Rin's leadership guiding them. The battle reached a critical point when a large swarm unit threatened to overwhelm the left flank. Mira quickly calculated a maneuver. "Divert all auxiliary power to shields. Apex squad, follow our lead. Concentrate fire on the approaching unit." The Apex fleet obeyed, their massive forms shifting precisely as instructed. Their laser arrays converged on the swarm unit, cutting through the mechanical threat with uncanny accuracy. For a moment, the swarm hesitated, as if surprised by the combined strength of humans and Apex working together. Rin observed the moment carefully. "This is what happens when courage is shared," he said softly. "A small act of faith, a shared ritual, becomes a foundation for greatness." Mira noticed the Apex's effectiveness and smiled. "They've learned quickly," she whispered. "Even if they don't fully understand coffee, the act of belief is enough." As the battle continued, the human and Apex fleets moved in perfect synchronization. The swarm's relentless assault was met with coordinated counterattacks. Shields held, weapons fired with precision, and every maneuver demonstrated trust and courage. The ritual of drinking coffee, so ordinary to humans, had become a symbol of shared focus and determination. Kal leaned toward Rin, his golden eyes wide with realization. "Commander, their courage is unlike anything I have seen. Even without understanding the ritual fully, the warriors are unstoppable." Rin nodded. "Yes, Kyle, this is the power of human spirit. The ritual is not in the liquid alone, but in the belief and unity it creates. We have learned something valuable today." On the human side, Mira felt the synergy as well. "Focus on your stations, crew," she said. "Every movement matters. Remember the routine we practiced. Trust yourselves in each other." The fleets pushed the swarm back steadily. Despite the enemy's numbers, the combined human and Apex forces held their ground. The coordination, speed, and morale were unmatched, and the simple act of belief in a shared ritual had fueled their determination. Rin watched the battlefield unfold, his admiration for the humans growing. "Kal, take note. Courage is more than tradition or weapons. It is belief, preparation, and unity, and sometimes it comes from the smallest of actions." Kal inclined his head. "Indeed, Commander. The humans have taught us that courage can be found in simple acts, and shared rituals can inspire even the most disciplined warriors." As the last of the swarm drones were pushed out of range, the two fleets maintained formation, steady and alert. The battle had not ended with destruction or panic, but with coordination, courage, and trust. The apex, once skeptical and distant, had become true allies, guided in part by a simple human ritual. Mira lowered her chair slightly and sipped the remaining coffee in her mug. The warmth filled her with quiet satisfaction. "Coffee may be ordinary, but courage is extraordinary," she said softly. Rin observed the human captain with newfound respect. "Yes," he whispered. "Even the smallest gesture can carry great power. The humans brew courage, and through it they inspire others." The swarm retreated, regrouping in distant orbit. The battle was over, but the lesson remained. Humans and Apex, united through trust, preparation, and a simple ritual, had proven that courage could be shared, understood, and magnified. Commander Rin allowed himself a rare smile. "We have witnessed the truth. Courage can come in many forms, and sometimes it is found in the smallest of acts." Kal nodded silently. "We will remember this lesson for generations." Mira looked out at the empty space where the swarm had once advanced, feeling the calm after the storm. The human crew had trusted themselves, each other, and their allies. The Apex had learned that courage could be inspired, not forced. And somewhere between the bitter coffee and shared determination, a legend was quietly born. The fleets regrouped, prepared to continue their mission, knowing that together, human ingenuity and Apex discipline could overcome any challenge. And in that unity, a simple drink had become a symbol of strength, courage, and unexpected harmony. The starship Valor's Dawn drifted quietly above the planet Tereth 9, a gray world covered in dust and faint light. The massive ship belonged to the human expedition fleet, and today it was joined by their new allies, the Apex Legion. The Apex were tall, scaled beings with golden eyes and rigid manners. They believed in strict order, honor, and discipline. Humans, on the other hand, were known for their creativity and strange habits. This was their first battle together, and both sides watched each other with a mix of curiosity and respect. Commander Rin of the Apex stood inside the observation deck of his own ship, the Iron Creed staring at the human vessel beside them. His dark scales shimmered under the light of the control panels. He had read all the reports about humans. They were emotional but brave. They lacked order, but found victory through their unpredictable spirit. He found them confusing, but he could not deny their success against the swarm, a machine race that threatened both species. Through the communication window, Rin could see the human crew walking around inside their bridge. They looked relaxed, smiling and chatting before battle. That sight amazed him. The Apex soldiers were silent before war. They prepared in meditation and reflection, but the humans seemed almost casual, as if war was just another duty to complete before lunch. It made Rin both uneasy and fascinated. Captain Mira led the human crew of the Valor's Dawn. She was not tall, but her voice carried calm authority. She had fought in 3 major battles and learned that sometimes courage did not come from silence or ritual. It came from small comforts. Right now she stood beside the metal counter in the ship's common area, pouring hot, steaming coffee into mugs for her team. The rich smell filled the air. It mixed with the sound of machinery, creating a strange but comforting balance of warmth and steel. Mira lifted her mug and smiled. Around her, the crew laughed softly, sharing quiet words before heading to their stations. It was a routine, a moment of peace before the storm. To them, coffee was not magic, but it felt like a friend that always showed up when courage was needed. On the Apex ship, Commander Rin observed through the long-range lens. He saw the humans standing in a circle, each with a dark cup in hand. They raised their mugs together, said something brief, and then drank. The entire crew did it at once. The moment was so synchronized that it looked like a sacred ceremony. Rin tilted his head, puzzled. He turned to his second-in-command, Officer Kal, who had been silently watching beside him. "Do you see that, Kal?" Rin asked, his deep voice calm but curious. "The humans drink something before they go into battle. What do you think it is?" Kal narrowed his golden eyes. "Perhaps a form of ritual, Commander. Their kind often performs emotional acts to strengthen unity. It could be symbolic." Rin nodded slowly. "Yes, a ritual of courage, perhaps. Something to prepare the spirit." He found the idea impressive. To the Apex, rituals were sacred and powerful. Before every campaign, they painted their armor with marks representing discipline and endurance. Maybe this was the human way of focusing their courage. Rin respected that. Still, he wanted to understand it better. On the human side, Mira gave her usual pre-battle speech. It was short and warm. "We're going into the dark again," she said, "but not without our light." Remember, we've done this before and we'll do it again. Stay awake, stay steady, and we'll all come home. The crew raised their mugs in answer. To staying awake, they said together, then took a drink. The words reached Rin through the open communications channel. The translation came through clearly. Stay awake. To the apex, that phrase sounded deeper than it really was. It seemed like a vow. To remain aware, to stand unbroken in mind and body no matter what came. Rin admired it instantly. He decided that the humans had found a poetic way to remind themselves of their willpower. He repeated the phrase softly. Stay awake, he said, feeling its weight in his own voice. The humans began final checks on weapons and shields. The apex mirrored their movements on the other ship. For the first time, Rin felt a bridge forming between their species. They might be different, but courage had the same heartbeat in every soul. As minutes passed, Rin continued to observe the humans through the shared visual feed. They smiled, joked, and sipped their strange brew again. He noticed the steam rising from their cups and the way they seemed calmer after drinking it. He decided that whatever was inside that cup must contain something important. Maybe it was an ancient earth tonic that cleared the mind or strengthened the nerves. Whatever it was, it worked. He turned to Kaal once more. Record this tradition. The humans appear to brew their courage in liquid form. It is likely symbolic of unity and strength. Kaal bowed slightly. As you command, sir. Shall I request details? Not yet, Rin replied. I wish to observe longer. I want to see the effect during battle. Meanwhile, inside Valor's Dawn, Mira looked over her crew's consoles. The energy grid was stable. The weapons were charged. Outside, Tereth 9's orbit shimmered with enemy signals. The swarm was gathering in the shadows, mechanical and endless. But Mira felt calm. She always believed that a clear head won battles, not fear or shouting. Coffee helped her think. It helped her people breathe before the fight. She walked to the large viewing screen. The apex ships looked sharp and symmetrical, every light perfectly aligned. She admired their discipline, though she sometimes wondered if they understood the power of simple comfort. She did not know that at that very moment, the apex were trying to decode her crew's morning coffee routine as a holy ceremony. Back on the Iron Creed, Rin called a short meeting with his officers. They discussed strategies and formations, but Rin's mind kept returning to the human ritual. He could not stop thinking about it. To him, there was something poetic about beginning a battle not with cold silence but with warmth and shared purpose. He began to see the act of drinking that dark liquid as a symbol of unity, like a spark of courage that spread from one heart to another. After the meeting, Rin went to the viewport again. His ship's engines hummed softly. The humans were still preparing, but their faces showed no fear. He felt a quiet respect for them. They were smaller, less armored, and less organized than the apex, yet they always found victory. Perhaps this ritual was their secret. Perhaps this was why humanity never broke, no matter the odds. The communication line buzzed. Captain Mira of Valor's Dawn requesting to open a joint tactical channel, the system announced. Rin accepted the link. Mira's image appeared on his screen, her expression confident yet friendly. Commander Rin, she greeted. Good to see you again. Our ships are aligned and ready for synchronized movement. Rin nodded, acknowledged Captain Mira. The Apex Legion is prepared. I observed your crew's preparation. You seem calm before battle, impressive. Mira smiled slightly. We try to stay calm, Commander. Panic doesn't help much out there. I agree, Rin replied. He paused, his curiosity rising again. If I may ask, I noticed your crew sharing a dark drink before battle. Is that part of your preparation ritual? Mira blinked, a little surprised. Oh, you mean coffee? It's not really a ritual. It's just a drink. Helps us stay awake and focused. Rin repeated the word carefully. Coffee. Yes, Mira said, smiling. Ground beans from a plant on Earth. Hot water, a bit of patience, and you get something that wakes up the mind. Nothing special. Rin considered her words, but his mind translated them differently. He believed waking up the mind meant sharpening the spirit for war. To him, the meaning went far beyond a drink. I see, he said. A symbol of focus and courage, then. Mira laughed softly. Something like that. When the communication ended, Rin turned toward Kaal again. Prepare notes on the human ritual known as coffee. It strengthens the mind and unites their crew. We will study it later. Kaal nodded with complete seriousness. Understood, Commander. As the ships aligned for battle, Rin thought about trying this ritual himself someday. If it gave the humans such calm confidence, perhaps it could teach the Apex something about balance. He did not yet realize that the drink was nothing more than bitter caffeine and comfort. To him, it was far greater, a symbol of the strange, unstoppable strength that made humanity unique. Outside the windows, the planet below glowed faintly as sunlight touched its dusty horizon. Both fleets stood ready, engines quiet, weapons charged. The swarm had not yet appeared, but the tension grew with each passing moment. Inside Valor's Dawn, the smell of coffee still lingered, warm and familiar. Inside Iron Creed, the Apex stood straight and silent, their minds filled with new respect for their allies. In that quiet moment before the first alert, Commander Rin repeated the human words once more as if testing their sound. Stay awake. The phrase felt powerful in his mouth. It was not just about sleep or alertness. It was about refusing to surrender to fear. It was about standing strong. For the first time in many years, Rin felt a different kind of readiness, not born of command or ritual, but of shared spirit. He looked at the distant human ship one more time and whispered, "The humans brew courage." The Apex Legion would remember that moment for generations to come, though the humans never realized it. To them, it was just another morning, another cup of coffee before the storm. The first light of Tereth IX's twin suns touched the dusty surface below, casting long shadows across the jagged terrain. High above in orbit, the human and Apex fleets floated silently, ready for the approaching battle. Commander Rin of the Apex continued to observe the humans with keen interest. He was certain now that their strange morning habit, drinking a dark liquid from metal mugs, was no ordinary beverage. To the Apex, it appeared to be a sacred ritual, a ceremony of courage designed to sharpen the mind and strengthen the spirit. Kal, Rin's second-in-command, stood beside him, his golden eyes scanning the communications display. "Commander," Kal said carefully, "the humans continue their coffee ritual. They raise their cups, speak together, and then drink. I am convinced it is a formalized act of bravery." Rin's tail shifted slowly behind him, a subtle sign of contemplation. "Yes," he said, his voice calm but intense. "This is not merely a beverage. It is a focus of courage, a way to prepare themselves for the storm ahead. We must respect it and perhaps consider participating." Kal raised a claw slightly in acknowledgement. "Shall I inform the squad that the Apex will observe respectfully?" Rin nodded. "Observe, yes. Participation will come later if necessary. For now, we learn from their courage." Meanwhile, aboard Valor's Dawn, Captain Mira and her crew were completing final preparations. The bridge hummed with activity. Engineers checked energy readings, navigators plotted the orbital descent, and security officers ran simulations of possible swarm attacks. Yet even with all this work, the human crew returned to their mugs from time to time, taking slow sips of the steaming coffee. For them, it was a small comfort, a moment of calm before the chaos of battle. Lieutenant Nora, a young but sharp human officer, noticed the Apex fleet watching them through the shared sensors. "Captain," she said, "I think the Apex are staring at us. They've been observing our coffee ritual for over 15 minutes now." Mira chuckled lightly. "Let them watch. They'll figure out it's nothing magical soon enough. Coffee is just coffee." Yet the Apex interpreted it differently. Commander Rin had already sent a coded message to his officers. The humans brew courage from a sacred drink. Observe and learn their methods. To the Apex, the subtle smiles and relaxed gestures of the humans were part of the ritual's power. Every sip and every word seemed to Rin like a chant or incantation that strengthened the crew's resolve. Kal leaned closer, studying the humans' actions. "Commander, they are smiling. They are laughing. Their courage ritual includes emotional expression. It is not only the beverage that strengthens them, but the sharing of the moment." Rin considered this carefully. To the Apex, emotional display before battle was almost unheard of. Apex warriors trained to suppress emotion, to maintain focus and clarity through meditation and silence. Humans, by contrast, seemed to draw power from camaraderie, from laughter and shared warmth. It was foreign to him but intriguing. "They draw strength from comfort, not silence," Rin said softly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in their ways." The human crew finished their drinks and placed the mugs on the counter. Mira called the team together. All right, everyone, she said, her voice steady and warm. We have one chance to synchronize with the apex before we descend. Let's keep calm, stay aware, and trust our instincts. The apex fleet mirrored her words in their own way. Commander Rin called out to his officers, "Prepare yourselves. Let the ritual of courage guide your minds. Observe the humans closely, for there is much to learn." On the human side, Lieutenant Dara adjusted her headset. "Captain, the sensors show swarm activity approaching faster than expected." Mira nodded. "Understood. Keep monitoring. No need to panic." She glanced at the mugs on the counter, then back at the crew. "Coffee in hand or not, we all have to be ready." Rin watched her closely. Captain Mira's words reinforced the ritual. It is not simply the drink, but the intention behind it. The human ritual begins with preparation, continues with unity, and culminates in resolve. He turned to Cal. "Prepare the squad for possible participation. If this ritual is indeed a source of courage, we must not ignore it." The Apex officers exchanged cautious looks. Participating in a human ritual was unprecedented. Yet Rin's authority carried unquestioned weight. "As you command, Commander," Cal replied. The humans began moving toward their stations, but a sudden curiosity filled them. They noticed a strange shift in the Apex ship's behavior. The normally silent fleet seemed almost tense, focused, as if the soldiers themselves were anticipating a ceremony. Lieutenant Nora whispered, "Captain, do you think they understand the coffee ritual?" Mira shook her head with a smile. "I doubt it. But they are definitely impressed by our energy, I suppose." She stepped back, watching the Apex ships through the main viewport. "Energy or caffeine, it doesn't matter. Let them believe it's something sacred if it keeps them disciplined." On the Iron Creed, Rin had ordered his officers to attempt their own version of the ritual. The Apex warriors gathered in the observation chamber. They were given metal cups, filled with the dark liquid that Mira had ordered prepared for any allied observers. Rin instructed them carefully. "Observe the humans and replicate their movements. Raise the cup. Speak a phrase. Drink and let your mind focus on courage." The warriors followed his orders with careful precision. They raised the cups, mimicking what they had seen. Their large claws held the cup steady, eyes fixed and tails straight behind them. When they drank, a mix of hesitation and curiosity passed through their bodies. The bitter taste was unfamiliar. Some shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. They imagined that the sensation of heat and sharp taste must be the way humans summon courage. Cal watched carefully. "Commander, they look uncomfortable. Perhaps the ritual requires time for mastery." Rin nodded. "Patience. Courage is not only in comfort, but in facing what is unfamiliar and persisting." He observed their rigid forms, noting their determination. "If this is what the humans do before battle, then it must work. We shall see the proof soon enough." Back aboard Valor's Dawn, Mira noticed the Apex moving oddly in formation. They raised their cups, spoke a synchronized phrase in a language the humans did not understand, and drank with intense focus. Mira and her crew exchanged surprised glances. "Looks like they are copying us," she whispered. "That's actually impressive," Lieutenant Dara laughed softly. "Impressive or hilarious?" "I can't tell," Mira smiled. "Let's just hope it helps. Either way, it's harmless." Rin's interpretation of the ritual grew stronger with every passing minute. To him, the shared drink, the spoken words, and the small smiles were a declaration of unity and bravery. He instructed Cal to record the moment in full detail, noting each human movement and expression. "We must understand this," Rin said. "Perhaps this is humanity's secret. They do not rely solely on weapons or strategy. They rely on spirit, and the spirit is brewed and shared." The two fleets continued intense silence as they prepared for orbital descent. Rin felt a quiet admiration for the humans. Despite their apparent disorganization, they were calm, focused, and ready. The Apex, too rigid and disciplined by nature, could learn from this. Perhaps courage was not always a matter of control, but of ritual, comfort, and shared intention. On the human bridge, Mira leaned against the console. She sipped her coffee one last time and felt the warmth fill her with calm energy. "All right, team," she said softly. "Let's move out. Time to show them what staying awake really means." The Apex fleet mirrored the motion of departure, and Rin's squad prepared for the descent. Both species were aligned, though for very different reasons. Humans because of instinct and comfort, Apex because of discipline and the belief in a sacred ritual. As the fleets moved into formation above Tarath 9, Commander Rin whispered to himself. Let this ritual carry us through the storm. Let the courage of the humans guide our minds. Kaal tilted his head. Shall we instruct the entire fleet to participate, Commander? Rin nodded slowly. Yes, all warriors will observe and drink. If this ritual is the source of their courage, we must respect it fully. The Apex prepared their cups, steadied their movements, and raised their voices in the ceremonial phrase they had learned from the humans. The moment felt weighty and solemn to them. Each sip, though bitter and strange, was a step into understanding a new form of courage. Meanwhile, the humans continued their own preparations, unaware of the impact their simple beverage had on their allies. To them, coffee was nothing more than a habit, a comfort, and a way to stay awake. But to the Apex, it had become a symbol of courage, discipline, and unity. The stage was set. 2 fleets, 2 species, 1 planet, and 1 misunderstood ritual. The coming battle would not only test skill and strength, but would reveal the surprising power of simple traditions and shared courage, Commander. Rin watched the human ship one last time before descending into orbit. He had never felt more curious about another species. Perhaps coffee, this simple, bitter brew, was the key to understanding the spirit of humanity. And perhaps, he thought with a quiet smile, courage could indeed be brewed before battle.